How about this one, Chewy? Because it doesn't really give a reason for this necessarily. Record number on the benefit. Record benefit number sparks unemployment warning.
Really?
A record of nearly 400,000 people are on some form of benefit, almost the same proportion of the population as after the global financial crisis. So in other words, because the population is bigger, more people than, but it's not the same. It's not the same per capita, but it's all the biggest number. And there's a warning that number will increase again before it falls. The data was released as a part of the Ministry of Social Development's update for September. It showed the proportion of the working age population receiving a main benefit lifted to 12%. So, we hear about unemployment being whatever it is, 4.5, but the proportion of the working age population, so I guess it doesn't include retired people over 65 because they wouldn't be classed in the stats as working age. So this means people on sole parent benefit, that's not unemployed, that doesn't get counted as unemployed. There's, supported living, that doesn't get counted as unemployed. So all the other ones, 12% or 391,224 people, up 0.6% percentage points from September 2023. Just over 6% of the population, or 204,000, were on the job seeker support. That compares to 12.4% of the population on a benefit after the GFC, of whom 2.6 were unemployment related. Interesting. 15.8% on a benefit at the Asian crisis peak, of whom 6.6% were unemployment related, and 16.1% on benefits in the downturn of the early 1990s, of whom 7.9% were on unemployment benefits. So there's a smaller percentage of people on those unemployment benefits now, but there are more numbers based on population growth. The story goes on to say Infometrics chief economist Brad Olson said it seemed unlikely that the proportion of people on the benefit would reach the 1990s level. The fact we are seeing unemployment increase is still not a good thing. Above 5% is still not an area you want to be, but it's substantially better than the post-GFC or the post-1990s economic hit. In the year ending December 2009, the unemployment rate was just over 6%. One of the challenges with the current slowdown in the economy is we've been through a period of such extremes before the pandemic. Let's say we were at normal. We came into the pandemic and the economy went down very low and we had to provide stimulus, but that worked so well that the economy went too high and generated excess inflation. We had to get it back to normal. It's fluctuated from the record lowest level ever of unemployment back to what is slightly above what we'd like to see it. Over time, hopefully, it will settle back down to a more normal Goldilocks position, not unsustainably tight or very weak. So Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold, not too warm, just right. We had Craig Rennie on, and he said something which has stuck with me. He said 4.5% unemployment is to be expected. 5.5% unemployment is government choice. So his position was that 1% difference is based on what this government is actively doing to drive it up. So 4.5% after an inflationary period is to be expected. 5.5% is engineered by the government. So government's making active choices to get it to 5.5%, Chewy.
Yeah, Brad Olson's a terrible economist. Just dreadful. Like this should shock no one, and I think this just really puts into stark relief the difference in government that we have. All through COVID, we had businesses going, "Oh, inflation's too high, and the only way to cut it is to cut hundreds of thousands of jobs," and everybody just spoke in those very big numbers. It was just percentages and numbers. It wasn't people. And that's what we've got. We've got a government that has just hit the flush button on people's lives.
Yeah.
To keep the businesses happy. And so with all of these numbers and all of these, it's just a 1 or 2 percentage points. You have families going into Christmas not knowing how they're going to pay their bills. That is something that is causing real diabolical stress for people. You had people that will be looking at a complete career change. I think of what is it, 600 to 800 people out of work in a town like Timaru.
Yeah.
That'll gut a city, like that'll reverberate through that community. That is 600 to 800 families now that don't have like half of their income. Maybe mum's still working, or the other partner's still working. But that's money that can't be spent in the region. That's families that will leave the region to find other jobs. And it is something that only plays into the hands of the employers, because they've now got more unemployed people competing for fewer jobs, and a government whose clear desire is not good wages. It's a shit show, and it was, not to be all Nostradamus over here, but we called it. We said that this was going to happen, but I don't think either of us, Pat, really expected it to happen in such dramatic fashion so quickly.
Yeah, and to bring context to the Timaru situation, Timaru is about 31 times smaller than Auckland. So that's 700-ish people losing their jobs in Timaru. If you're living in Auckland, or one of the bigger centres, that's the equivalent of 21,500 people losing work in Auckland. That's the equivalent. So if you're living in Auckland, imagine 21,500 people in the city of Auckland being unemployed like that. So it's decimating.
When I talk about a cascading effect from something like that, you think about the local businesses that are now having to find that they're not hitting their targets, they're not hitting their sales or revenue or that sort of thing, and then they have to cut back, and then that goes on to their suppliers. It will reverberate through those communities.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. We've got the sawmills up north, and it's always the same places. It's always these agricultural hubs, these regional hubs that are having to tighten their belts. And I have to sit there and look at that and go, is it red or blue in Timaru? I think it's blue. I think they voted blue. So the government's happy to cheer their wins. They have to own their losses as well. And a massive amount of people unemployed and now on a state benefit, that's them. They have to own that as well.
You talk about them being focused on business, this government, but like, just again as an example, this printing gear that I'm buying is from someone whose business is closing down, and he's like, it's tough, it's too tough out there, it's too much, can't do it. So it seems to me that they're not doing well for them, for the businesses, and they're not doing well for the individuals. But Chewy, I think you say this quite a bit, so kudos to you, is this government seems to be not the government of business, but the government of big business. Fonterra, record profits in New Zealand. But actual, like we've always said, Luxon is not a businessman. He's a board member. He's never got up at 6 a.m. to get down to his shop, to start it up, to get it off the ground, to build it into a franchise. He's never done that. He's not a businessman. He's a board member. And he's a salesman. He's a salesman and he's a board member. That's not a businessman. Just because you work in the world of business. If you work in the hospital as a cleaner, you're not a fucking doctor. Just because you work in an area of medicine doesn't mean you know about brain surgery. So it doesn't seem, Chewy, that they're actually satisfying anybody, because businesses are still finding it really hard. Individuals, voters, citizens, whatever you want to say, are finding it really hard. So I'll say this again. I said this on a tweet the other day and got a lot of pushback. Which economy is this government serving? Are they serving the economy that's best for the millionaires, or the economy that's best for the solo parents? Because I don't believe you can make decisions that work well for both of those economies. I don't believe that what a government would do, that a millionaire would go woohoo to, someone on a benefit's going to go woohoo to. Or if they're going to do it what's perfect for a beneficiary, and they go woohoo. I don't believe that necessarily, and I don't care about this one because that's where my bias is, that maybe the millionaire will go woohoo. So really they have to pick what economy they're going to try and improve. And it seems that they've picked big business. Who else? Tobacco, petroleum, and all the vulnerable on that. They're they've made an active choice not to help that economy, Joey.
Yeah, they're definitely pitching for companies that have maybe their headquarters in a different country. Put it that way.
Yeah.
It's looking for people that have investments.
Yeah.
Publicly traded companies. Certainly not small business.
Yeah. Yeah. Small business, dairy owners, sole operators, guys who are builders who are just, building slowed down, everything's slowing down. Everyone's leaving the building sector, they're going offshore, then it picks up again. All the companies that are trying to build houses will be like, where's everyone gone?
Oh.
It's like, well, they're in Queensland now.
So they just accepted the resignations of a whole bunch of people, voluntary redundancy in Te Whatu Ora.
Yep, 400, isn't it?
And they offered everybody at Kiwi Rail voluntary redundancy. I noticed as well. Like, this is a hemorrhaging of workers, like I've never seen. And certainly the Kiwi Rail one stuck out for me. Like, that is, to me, shedding as much payroll as you can. And that'd look good to a potential investor, wouldn't it? You had a really lean payroll.
And I mean, seeing you don't have ferries anymore, you don't need all that staff to work on the ferries, do you? So, they can just go. I think they're going to buy a barge. Top Gear is going to come across and they're going to build a barge to get from one island to the other. You can drive your car onto it.
At Picton and Wellington, there will be a scrapyard and you have to assemble your own. And we can film it. We can put it on TVNZ and make some revenue that way.
There you go.
Who will get across the strait this school holidays?